Hello, this is Craig Mertens, President and CEO of Digital Art Solutions. Welcome to the webcast. This is a co-webcast that we do with Conde Systems. Today's topic, we're going to be mixing sublimation with rhinestones and heat press vinyl. So that's kind of a fun little topic. It's a topic I really enjoy because it adds a lot of value to things that you're already doing. And let me give you a great example of that. This graphic right here, you see on our screen, this is a template. This template has XYZ value. When it's just printed onto, say, a t-shirt, okay? It's got a certain set of value. If I sprinkle a few rhinestones on here, it's got a completely separate set of value. And so we can upcharge for it. And I'll give you a very specific example of that. I had a client that was working with a large national chain of ice cream stores, and he was doing printing for them. He was actually using his DTG printer, and he sent me an email, and he said, "Hey, Craig, I'm doing this design, and it's this really dynamic, colorful design. It's on white t-shirts, and what we did in the ice cream cone that's on the t-shirt, we just sprinkled some rhinestones in there. And what should I charge for him?" And it was pretty funny because he listed out all the how many stones he was using. He's only using like 35 stones, and they're just kind of random stones, so it looks like sprinkles. And I said, "Dude, you got like 35 stones times 0.4 cents per stone. You're talking about 17, 18 cents worth of stones there." And he says, "You're going to charge $3.50 extra for it." And he emailed me back. He says, "There's no way they're going to." I said, "Just trust me." And he did. He charged $3.50 extra just for sprinkling some stones into the design, because rhinestones have high perceived value. That's a big deal. So let's take this template. I'll show you how we got to this template, and I'll show you what we're doing right now. And let's do a little multi-decoration with this. I think it's a really, really nice little template. So what I'm doing, I'm in CorelDRAW. I'm in CorelDRAW 2017. This would look exactly the same way in CorelDRAW 2018, or X8, excuse me. And then it looks similar in Corel X7, except the user interface in X7 is a little bit different. This is not your normal version of CorelDRAW. And one of the first questions people ask, especially if they're Adobe users or Mac users, they're like, "Can we do this same thing in Adobe Illustrator with a Mac, or Adobe Illustrator with Windows computer?" I'm here to say, nope, you can't, because this particular software that you can see is an add-on software to CorelDRAW. And it's going to take all these complex things that you would normally do in Corel and make them really, really super simple. And that's one of the very best things that we do. If we were doing this in Adobe Illustrator, we would be doing them manually one step at a time. I don't have to do that. I'm running the Smart Designer add-on software for CorelDRAW, and that's what's going to make this all possible. If you're a Mac user, it's fine, because all new Macs can all run Windows. So you can put Windows on there, and then you can put CorelDRAW on there, and you can take advantage of all this wonderful technology. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull up a template. And I'm going to go into the command center of Smart Designer. All this stuff you see over here, this is all part of the Smart Designer command center. And so there's about 140 different features that we add to CorelDRAW. The feature that I'm currently interested in is a feature called templates. So I'm going to click on Select Template, and the template browser is going to open up. And a template can be anything. So a template can be, for instance, it could be a rhinestone multi-decoration design. And so we've invented the process of creating rhinestone heat transfers with a vinyl cutter. We invented that back in 2007. So that's something we know a lot about. So these are templates that are combinations of rhinestones and possibly heat press vinyl, or you could do the printed part here as a sublimation. We could do that. The other types of templates, that you could talk about a template that's very specific for, say, monogramming. We have 3,200 monogram templates. That's kind of a big deal. And so a monogram template is a pre-built template. I don't have to go in and do any kind of typing of keyboard shortcuts. I just simply click on this template. It opens up, and I can just change the text using the functionality of the Smart Designer software. But the template we're going to do is we're going to do a template that's just a generic template that we could either screen print. We could print this in a DTG printer. If we wanted to, we could do it in vinyl, or in this case, sublimation. So we would print sublimation transfers, and then we would press this onto a t-shirt, or it could be a tote bag, and that would be done using sublimation ink set and a sublimation printer. So that's a pretty common way of doing it. the substrates that you're going to print on, there's polyester t-shirts that are designed specifically for sublimation. And one of the nice things about doing sublimation on a polyester t-shirt is the colors are, wow, bright, like really bright. And so it really pops off the page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to some templates. These are templates from our campus apparel marketing system. The way our campus apparel marketing system works is it's a monthly subscription program, and we have a little button in our Smart Designer. It says check for update. So I would click on that. It would go check for update on our server and says, hey, the brand new campus apparel templates are available. I would click on that button for February. I'd click download, and they would install. So I haven't installed February yet, but I did install January. And so I can show you what January 2018 looks like. So January of 2018, we did a section on medical graphics. So here's a one-color version. This would be primarily for one-color printing, or if you're doing vinyl cutting, here's a two-color version, which is ideal for embroidery, applique, two-color printing. You could sublimate that, or two colors of vinyl. And then here's a full color version of the template. And so there's three versions of the same template in clip art. So here's a veterinary clinic. Here's a little family practice design. Here's a musical series here. So here's a whole set of musical graphics. And then here's a series of track and field graphics right here. And then here, right here, is sales flyers. So these are editable flyers that you can go in and create custom proposals for your clients. So that's something we do with Campus Apparel. So there's three parts to Campus Apparel. One is the monthly downloads. Number two is the back issues. So back issues of the monthly template downloads assembled into art volumes. So that's called Campus Graphics 1, 2, and 3. And then the third part is an actual catalog. And the catalog is 16 pages. It's full color. Customers start out with 10 of those, and they order hundreds of them. And they use that as a leave-behind marketing piece for their customers. And so there's an art volume that actually goes along with that catalog. So these are the templates from the current catalog right here, just to give you an idea. So here's some church designs, events, clubs, and band, school designs. Here's some sports designs, fashion. So this is this year's catalog. And there'll be another catalog that'll come out in the spring. So there you go. So what I'm interested in is I'm interested in that first responders group. So I'm going to come over here and go to fire and police, and I'm going to click on this template. So as soon as I click on this template, the template's going to open. Now, something that's very important, if we're going to do this design as a multi-decoration design, and we're going to add, say, stones to this, what we want to do is we want to go in and size it to whatever the finished size of the design is. So that's very, very important. I'm going to do that when I'm done name dropping it, but we are going to size it before we add the rhinestone layers. So the first part is the name dropping. This right here in Smart Designer is called the property editor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here, I'm going to highlight the word East Lake, and I'm going to type in Scottsdale, which is where I live. And I'm going to go ahead and leave fire department there, and where it says fire, I'm just going to highlight that. I'm going to type in local. And where it says rescue, I'm going to type in 259. I don't know what the local is there, but this is how we localize that template. And something that's very important here is this is a multi-layer text effect, but this is what we call a chisel effect. So there's actually three fonts that sit on top of each other that create that effect. And actually there's a fourth layer there because we have a drop shadow layer, which is the red layer. So I can isolate any of these layers right here to be heat press vinyl. So in this particular design, that drop shadow effect, that effect, and that effect, I would isolate those as heat press vinyl, and I would do those as glitter. So I'd actually heat press the glitter over the top of the sublimation. That'd be pretty awesome. So as far as colors, I like the colors that are in here right now, but if we go down here and we click on change art, we could change the artwork over here, or we could go down here and, because I don't really want to change the art, so I'll show you how that works. So hit preview, and you could do a keyword search for a different graphic or change the piece of artwork out. So here's the art elements in here. And what we're going to do here is go to modify color. Actually, you know what? The text in there is kind of goofy. So what we would do on the 9 right here, I'm going to type in where the 9 is. I'm going to type in FD for fire department. There you go. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to modify colors. Well, why do I need to modify colors? This is super duper important, okay? So sit with me. The colors that I'm seeing on the screen look great, but they probably look different on your monitor based on the way your monitor is calibrated. So the only thing that's important here is what actually gets printed on the shirt. The substrate color that you're printing on actually has an impact on how the colors look. So the reason color here is important is, number one, we might want to change the color scheme, but number two, we need to color correct the image so it comes out to the correct colors when we do the imprint. The way we do that is in Smart Designer. There is a function under color management. It says print color charts. We have specialized color charts here for sublimation printing and also for Pantone colors. We would print out that chart. We would actually transfer that chart onto a t-shirt. We would look at the t-shirt and say, yep, that's the red I'm trying to go for. We'd take note of that red and say, okay, that's the red I want to do. So let's go back into Smart Designer and let's recolor this red to the red that we want to use from our chart. So we know exactly what it's going to print out. So what I would do is just say swap color, go over here and say swap. I'd look at that color chart and say, I want to do 032 red. So I'm going to type in here red 032, and it's going to automatically recolor that image to that color red. It's just going to do it for me automatically. And so that's a really clever way to do color correction, is just using the swap color feature in Smart Designer. So we've got the design, have it the way I want. I actually like the colors that are in it right now. We're going to leave that alone. But what I am going to do now is I'm going to size this up properly for my particular project. So what we're going to do is I'm going to change my working area here to the page size for my printer. So if my printer is printing, say, 13 by 19, I'm going to change that. And then I'm going to take the design and I'm going to size it to whatever my print size is. I'm going to go over here and change to landscape view. And I'm going to use Smart Designer to size it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Command Center and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go to Sizing and Arranging. And I'm going to click on Size Design. So we're going to say Size to Design. And we have a database of sizes. So I've got banners and posters and promotional products and signs. And what I want to do is just a standard adult size. So right there, or I did oversized adult. We could do like a youth medium, and it's just automatically going to size it. And then I can put my own design sizes in here as well. So there's like an oversized adult. Here's just a standard adult. And then here's like a kid's design right there. I would probably want to do, let's say if we're going to do this as, we can make it a little bit bigger if we want, maybe 10.5 if we want it a little bit bigger. I don't really want it larger than 11 in one direction. So for a standard adult size shirt, right now it's 11 tall. It's using the width diameter. So 10.5 by 11 for a standard adult shirt would not be a bad size. It could go a little bit bigger if we wanted to, but it depends on the range. Like if you're going from small to XX, you need to make it a little bit smaller. If you're going, say, from medium to XX, you can make it a little bit bigger. Now with sublimation, what I would do with sublimation, I might make two different sizes of the design if I had big people. So maybe I'll do small to large in one size and then do large to, say, XXX in another size. So you always have the option of doing that. So what I'm going to do next is once we have it sized, we're going to go in and we're going to add some rhinestone elements to the design. So this element right here is a graphical element. And with that graphical element, I can ungroup the design, and I actually have access to that element right there. Okay, so I'm going to ungroup it, and I have that element. If I want to put a rim of stones around there, I can very easily do that. Now, one of the challenges I'm going to have is these really tight areas right here. These tight areas are going to create overlaps in the stones, and I'm going to show you how that impacts the design. In the context of doing sublimation, I can put stones right directly on the ink. If I'm doing direct-to-garment printing, I can put, if I'm doing light substrates like white or ash or like a natural color, I can put the stones right directly on the ink. If I'm doing something, say we're doing dark garment printing with like an Oki data printer or a dark garment for DTG, I can't put the stones right on the ink because they won't stick. So what I would want to do is maybe delete this graphical element right here. See, I could delete that and then do a boundary of stones around that so it wasn't touching the ink. So what I'm going to do on this one is we're going to create a boundary of stones right here. And I'm going to switch gears. And the gear I'm switching to is another software called Rhinestone Designer. This is our Rhinestone multi-decoration software. You will notice this is a toolbar over here. This is the Smart Designer toolbar. And I can activate Smart Designer by clicking on those little petals. If I click on the little rhinestone icon, it's activating a separate function for doing rhinestones. And so these are all my rhinestone functions, and also specific heat press vinyl functions. So we're going to do both. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click on just this red object right here, and we're going to throw a contour of rhinestones around the perimeter of it. So in Rhinestone Designer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say outline this in stones, and we're going to do an SS10 stone. SS10 stands for Swarovski size. And so an SS10 rhinestone is actually between 2.9 millimeters and 3.1 millimeters in diameter, depending upon the manufacturer. We're going to cut a stencil. So we're going to use a vinyl cutter to cut a stencil, and then what we're going to do is use that stencil to make a transfer. And so I need to make sure I have the correct diameter for the circles that I cut the stencils out. So you notice when I change size stones, say go to an SS6, it drops it down to 2.4. When I go to an SS10, it brings it back up to 3.2. I can also hit plus or minus if I want to make that stone diameter a little bit bigger or smaller to make sure those stones brush in easier. And then I can save that as a preset. So what we want to do is pick a stone color. So I'm going to pick a stone color. I'll pick Black Diamond, which is a really cool color. So that'd be fun. Everybody always picks the clear stones, but boy, there's so many neat color stones and things that you can do. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to select Create Contour, so it offsets the stones from that path. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on either Force Corners. I can click on Force Corners to force a stone, or we'll try it both ways to see which way it looks like. And I'll show you the difference. What Force Corners is going to do is anywhere there is, like on this design, this is all rounded, but if there was an angle right here, it would put a stone right on that angle. It would put one here, and then would alter the spacing on that line segment for every line segment. Now on this design, the way we have it set up, there's no angles on it, so I will probably not use the Force Corners, but let's see what it looks like just to see what's going on here. We'll click on it. It's not bad. Actually, it looks pretty good. I kind of like it. It's not bad. We'll try it the other way. We'll try it without Force Corners and see if we like it any better. Oops, I want to offset that. So I'm going to click on Create Contour so it offsets it from the path. I'll show you something. This is kind of interesting. If I undo that and I click on Keep Path and we click on this, watch what happens. It's going to keep those stones fixated to a path. And if we do that, then what I can do is I can use the plus or minus button here to add or delete stones to get it to hit on the path exactly the way I want it. And to me, that right there, that looks absolutely flat out perfect. So I'm just adding and deleting stones to get it to nail down on that path. Now, one of the things that I did notice about the design is I do need to move the word fire department down, and I'm going to show you a little trick in Corel. I'm going to hold my Alt key down, and all I have to do is just nick that text, and then I can use my arrow to move it down. And I'm going to, for consistency purposes, I'm going to go over here and nick that text with my Alt key down and move that up. So I'm feeling pretty good about this design. So we're going to click on File, and then we're going to click on Save, because I kind of love this design. And we're going to click on our desktop, and I'm going to type in Scottsdale FD right there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add some glitter vinyl to this. So very, very important. This is a Digital Art Solutions font. So we're a font foundry. And because we're a font foundry, we do all these clever things with fonts, like these chisel fonts. And these chisel fonts create that chisel effect. And so what that allows me to do is isolate just this piece, actually we'll do them one at a time so you can see how you do it. I can just click on just that piece right there, and we can apply glitter vinyl effect to that. And so what I would do in Rhinestone Designer, I would go over here to Contours and Vinyl Fills, and I would click on Vinyl Fills, and I would select, under Patterns, I'd select the glitter color I want to do. So I want to do this in Silver Glitter. So we're going to go down here, we're going to pick Silver Glitter right here, and I'm just going to double click on that. It's going to make that Silver Glitter. And I'm going to do the same thing right here. So I'll show you something. If I get a view in wireframe, you can still see the path for the rhinestones. That's what's allowed me to add and delete stones. So I'm going to click on this little button here, and it's going to remove that path. So you don't have to do that, but it just makes it easier to select things. So we're going to click on this one right here. We're going to make that Silver Glitter. Why not? And then this right here, Silver Glitter. So we have 3 steps to this process now. Step number 1 would be printing the sublimation transfer, pressing that to the shirt. Step number 2 would be doing the glitter vinyl, cutting the glitter vinyl out, placing that over the sublimation transfer, heat pressing that again. Step number 3 would be putting the rhinestones on there and pressing that again. Because there is a temperature differential, I'm going to do all the sublimation pressing first on all the shirts. I'm going to sublimate them all first. Then I'm going to lower the temperature down to 330 degrees to do the glitter vinyl and the rhinestone layer. So we're going to do all the sublimating first, let everything cool down, lower the temp on the press down to 330. We're going to press the glitter at 330 medium pressure for 15 to 17 seconds. And the rhinestones, we're going to press them at 330 for 10 to 15 seconds. If you just wanted to make it easy, just do them both for 15 seconds at 330. You'd be just fine. So there's our design. So go ahead and saved it. And now what we have to do is set up the cut file. So right now, as it stands, there's quite a bit going on. I got my rhinestone layer here. I got all my vinyl. I've got my sublimation. And we have to create what's called a color separation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a feature in Rhinestone Designer to do that. So let me kind of explain what all these little settings here do and why you don't really want to change them and why they're kind of perfect. Okay. So thing number 1, prepare for cut. Anything in this design that's not supposed to be cut, like that little reference line under the stones, it would just ignore that. Okay. Or if you had a stray object over here. But the other thing it's going to ignore is the sublimated part, the part that's not marked as vinyl. It's going to ignore all that because I haven't told it it's vinyl. Secondly, create separations. We'll create a separate cut file for the glitter layers as well as the rhinestone layer. Okay. Mirror rhinestones. The only time I would want to mirror the rhinestones is if we were going to do, for instance, fake rhinestones with heat press vinyl. People do that all the time, fake rhinestones. Add overcut is going to create an overcut on the circles. When we go to cut this, I'll explain exactly what that is once we do the separation. Sort stones is going to sort the cutting order of the rhinestones from bottom right to upper left, so it cuts much, much faster on your vinyl cutter as opposed to jumping around all over the place. I'm not going to double cut. I'm just going to single cut because I'm using an overcut feature. Optimized material is going to shorten my weed borders. I'm going to put a margin in here of 1/4 inch for my weed borders for the upper left and bottom right margin. I can group the color separations if I want. I don't have to do that. It's up to me. But right here it says create print page. And so create print page, what that's going to do is it's going to create a separate page for the sublimation transfer. And I'm going to say remove any vinyl objects. So anything that's vinyl on here, we're going to have it remove those. So we're just going to hit apply, and we're going to do our color separations. So there's all kinds of things that are going on behind the scenes here. And about 16, this particular part of the coding was like, I can't remember how many times. It was like, I think it was a month worth of programming to do this. It was kind of nuts. So let's talk about what we have here. Okay, so first things first, what we have here is our cut file right here. So this is our cut file for the rhinestone layer. This is our cut file for the vinyl layer. You notice it's mirrored. And this is our sublimation part. So you notice it removed the vinyl from here. So the vinyl is removed from there. And this is the part we're going to sublimate. So if we're ganging these up on multiples, or if we're just printing them one page at a time, we're just going to print that out. If we need to mirror it, we're going to mirror it. So this is your sublimated part. The vinyl is removed. This is your cutting part right here. So what we do, the next part of the production process, is we have to cut out our vinyl and we have to cut out our rhinestone stencil. And so every cutter will have its own cutting software. If you had a Cameo cutter, you could just click in Rhinestone Designer, you could just click on Export, and you click on Export to typically an SVG file, and it would save an SVG file. You'd bring that into your Cameo software to cut it. Okay, that's one way of doing it. But what we do, we have this integrated with our cutting software. So if you have a GCC cutter and you're running the Gray Cut software, that's the baby brother to our Stone Cut software, which means if we click on this little icon here, it's automatically going to move the file to the cutting software. If you're running our Stone Cut or our Stone Cut Pro software, it's going to do the same thing. The other thing you'll notice is we have a toolbar icon over here. This little toolbar icon will take this file and move it to the cutting software as well. So I'm just going to go over here and click on Cut. And it's going to move this over to the cutting software. And then we're going to set this up to cut. So this is called Stone Cut. And so first things first, I want to come over here and I want to show you what we really did with these circles. These aren't circles anymore. So when you cut a circle on a cutter, what will happen is your blade will drop here. It will come around here. And just short of where it dropped, it'll lift up. That's going to leave a connecting point. That connecting point is going to result in very poor weeding. Because when you try to remove the excess material, what you're going for is you want those dots to stay down on a liner sheet. That's the part you're going to throw away. And you want the stencil to not have any dots in it. You want them to stick to the liner sheet. If you don't do this overcut piece right here, all those dots are going to pick up because they're connected. There's a tiny little connection piece. So what overcut does is it drops the blade here, it comes around, and then it recuts just that section. And people always ask me, well, why don't you just double cut? Here's why we don't want to double cut. The Wonder Flock material, which is our exclusive flock material for cutting rhinestone stencils, and that's all it's good for, is thick. So we need about 150 grams of downforce pressure to get through it. Once you get through the first layer, if you do a double cut, it's going to encounter less resistance, and it's going to cut right through the liner sheet on the second layer. So we don't need a double cut. All we need to do is apply this overcut to the file. Doesn't matter what cutter you have. You could have a Cameo, you could have a Jaguar 5, or a big heavy-duty Graphtec. It's just still going to weed perfectly, and that's a result of this little feature in the software. And that actually translates over here to this. Now, something else. I'm teaching you guys something. When you have vinyl like this right here, and you're going to do glitter, you have these angular corners. On a vinyl cutter, what's going to happen is when the cutter goes to hit this corner, what it's going to do, it's going to lift the blade up, and then it's going to drop it. And then it's going to start cutting this section right here. It has to swivel around this corner. The problem is when that blade swivels, it doesn't quite cut these corners. So that's why when you're cutting small text, sometimes it catches a little bit and it'll pull the letters up, and that's why you get tearing in glitter vinyl. Some cutters have a native overcut feature. So if you're running like a Graphtec cutter, the newer Graphtecs, or a GCC cutter like a Puma 3 or a Puma 4 or a Jaguar 5, they have overcut on the machine that will finish those corners. But some of the older cutters don't have that feature. So for instance, a Roland GS24 doesn't have that feature. That's why you're getting tearing on your glitter, and that's why you're having problems with letters picking up. So what we do in our Stone Cut cutting software have a feature that says cut with overcut, which will create an overcut in the actual file. It actually changes the artwork, so we get a brilliant level of overcut, so we get really good weeding. I don't have to do that for this rhinestone stencil, but we need to do that if you don't have overcut on your cutter for this part. So let's set up the cutting part, and we don't really need these weed borders, so I'm going to delete the weed borders here. So we're going to ungroup that. So we're going to have the software put its own border on there because I'm going to show you something really clever that we're going to do with this. So number one, on the rhinestone stencil, we're going to take we have a roll of what we call Wonder Flock. It's a navy blue material. It's designed specifically for creating a rhinestone stencil. We are going to load that into the vinyl cutter. We are going to set the pressure on the cutter at 150 to 150 grams of downforce pressure. We're going to use a specialized blade called a Z blade. This is a blade that's made exclusively for Digital Art Solutions. It's a very narrow-tipped 60-degree blade. It looks like a needle. It's really, really fine. And we need that needle-thin blade to cut perfect little circles at tiny sizes, because this is actually a medium-sized circle. If we were doing this as an SS6 rhinestone, it would be 2.4 millimeters. So we need that needle-thin blade, because if we use a thicker blade, it creates the circles too small because it occupies too much space. So we need a really thin blade, so it's called a Z blade. So the cutter's there. We got the Wonder Flock loaded in. We got the pinch rollers down. We got our Z blade in there. Blade depth on this is going to be about half the thickness of a credit card. You'll never have a blade out any further than that. That's like the most you'll ever have a blade out. On standard vinyl, it's less than a quarter of the thickness of a credit card. So tiny little bit of blade depth out. And so what I'll do is I'll just simply select the stencil right here. And in Stone Cut, I'm going to click on the little Cut Objects button. And I'm going to select a preset for my material. So I'll click on Wonderflock. That will set my pressure and my speed. If I have a brand new super sharp blade, I'm going to drop this pressure down to 150. Because if I don't, I could cut through my liner sheet. As my blade ages and gets a little bit dull, I'm going to start increasing this pressure. So probably about the max I'd ever go to is about 160. If you're needing 160 to get through that flock material, chances are you need a new blade. And blades, if you're cutting just Wonderflock, you could go 6 months on a blade. If you're cutting glitter vinyl, you might have to change a blade after 100 cuts, because glitter vinyl's got metal in it and it dulls a blade super duper quick. So one of the things that we do is those Z blades are tungsten carbide steel. They're really super hard steel, so they last a really long time. So that's kind of a big deal. Now you've noticed I have weed border selected here, so we're going to put a 1/4 inch weed border around it. Sort before output is selected, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that is in a second, because sort before output, what that does is it sorts the cutting order, and in this case I have it set to sort it bottom right to upper left. So it does that automatically. As long as I have that button checked, it does that automatically. If the cutter was loaded with material, I would hit read material. It would give me some feedback. It would say I've got 10.5 inches of material loaded in there. If on the cutter it supports a rear media sensor, I could have it tell me the length of material, and that's typical on most of the better cutters can do that. And then what I would do is hit preview, and then I would just simply fire this off to the machine. I'm going to show you what sort before output does, so you kind of understand how that works. I don't have to do this step here. It does this automatically. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what it would look like if I didn't sort it. When it goes to cut, what it's going to do, actually we'll do it this way. Hold on. I messed up. We're going to come back out of here because I sorted it. I'm going to show you what it looks like if we don't sort it. So if we don't sort it, it's going to look like this when it cuts. It's going to cut just in the order in which the circles were created in the software. Okay, we don't want to do that because it's going to be jumping all over the place, and it's not a very efficient way to do it. As long as we have that sort before output button checked, it's going to automatically sort the object. So if you're cutting just vinyl, you're going to cut 30 to 40% faster. Your machine is going to track probably twice as long. So if you're getting 3 feet of tracking right now on your cutter, you could get very easily 5 or 6 feet of tracking because it's not having to move that cutting head out. So it's a really big deal. Now, something that you could also do, I don't have to send this directly to the cutter right now. What I could do is I could send it to the job spooler and just hold it. And when I cut all my rhinestone stencils, I could just cut them all together from the job manager. And so there's a little button down here. Here's your job manager. And here's the jobs the last few jobs that I cut. We can just hold them right here and then just right click to start to initiate the cutting. I could also gang multiple jobs up on one roll of material to save space. That's another real smart way to do it. One of the really neat things about this particular cutting software, our Stone Cut, which incidentally will drive every cutter on the market, is if I come over here to options, I could tell it how many times I want to repeat that job, and I can have it activate an audio signal between jobs. So for instance, let's say my cutter is only capable of tracking 5 feet, but I have to cut, and I have to cut 200 decals. And each one of those decals there's 50 decals in every 5 feet, right? So what I would do is I'd have 50 decals. I would cut it 4 times, and it would actually have it stop between each section, do an audio tone that says, bing, I have stopped. And then you go over to the cutter and you trim off that material and you recenter the pinch rollers and you hit go on the little button and it cuts the next section of 5 feet. Then bing, go repeat. So it's a really neat way to manage long runs of material. If you're running like, say, a GCC cutter, like you're running like a Puma series or a Jaguar series cutter, Puma series cutter will track 15 feet easily. A Jaguar series will track 30 feet easily, so it's not as important. But if you're running like, say, a Roland series cutter or one of the Graptecs where the tracking isn't, up to, that 10 to 15 to 30 feet tracking, This is a really handy feature to use. So this is the stencil we'd cut out. So we'd cut out that stencil. We're going to weed it. We're going to put it on a backer board. Then what we're going to do is we're going to cover that in rhinestones. We got a little pad. We're going to brush that in. Those stones are going to brush in 5 seconds. Every single stone is going to be shiny side up. We're going to lift it off with transfer tape, and that's our heat transfer. And if you've never seen that process before, and if you don't believe me, that's going to brush in 5 seconds. Come join us at a trade show, and I'll show you. I'll do a 1,000-stone stencil blindfolded, and it'll take me 15 seconds to do it. And I'll get every stone in the circle. That's the miracle of Wonderflock. That's why we call it Wonderflock. Okay, so that's that part. The next part is this part. This is a crazy waste of material here. Crazy waste of material. We would never want to do it that way. And so what we want to do here on this is we want to break this into sections. And then what we want to do is optimize the material. So what we're going to do now, it's already mirrored because this Rhinestone designer automatically mirrored it for me. So because we told it was glitter, but what we want to do is we want to put an individual weed border around each one of these. So I'm going to hit E, E, and E. That puts an individual weed border around these because we're going to actually do this as a separate cut file. And then what we're going to do is we're going to optimize the material. So when we go to cut this, what we're going to do is we're just going to select this right now, and then we're going to go to cut it, and we're going to tell it how many we're going to do. The rhinestone stencil, we only have to do 1. But this one, we got to do as many as we have in order. So we have an order for 500 of these. Wouldn't that be awesome? So let's say we have an order for 24 of these. So what I would do is I would go over here and I'd say glitter vinyl. It would set my pressure and my speed, 120 grams. On a graphic, that would be 12. You just drop the 0 off. Okay. And I'm going to cut at full speed, so 153 centimeters a second. I would hit read material. Glitter vinyl 24-inch roll is going to be about 18.5 inches of cuttable distance. Sort before output. We want to put a weed border around the perimeter of the whole thing. And then we're going to hit preview. And then we're going to tell the software how many we want to do. So we're going to say we want to do 24. And we want to do 1 up and 24 across. There's that. And then what we want to do is optimize the material so we don't waste material. So I say optimization, rotate as needed, and it'll optimize all the material. Oh, I had an extra line in there. I thought I saw that. There's an object in there. Tricky, tricky, tricky. So that's basically the way we would do it. We'll repeat that so you can see how that works. We just click on that, hit E for weed border around each individual part. And I don't really have to gang it up like this. I just did that so I make sure it'll fit. Select it, click cut, read material, pick your preset, hit preview, tell it how many we want, tell it to optimize material, rotate as needed, and then just fire it off to the cutter. That's it. And here's the thing that's kind of neat too. If you had a design that was more complex and you wanted to break it up into sections, you can drag a weed border and do it in quadrants. On this one, you don't really have to because I have a perimeter weed border. It will peel out across the whole thing, and then we're just going to weed these out individually. But even though it's going over the graphic, it will skip over that. So just thought I would show you that. So that's the cutting part. So on the pressing part, we'd print the transfer out. We'd set up our sublimation transfer at the higher temperature, press that on there, peel paper off, go let it sit in the corner, get a whole stack of all 24 shirts over there. And then what we'd do is we'd make our transfers. We'd make our 24 transfers. And I would probably be making the transfers while the sublimation is pressing because you can make these transfers really quick. So I'd press the shirt. If I have a semi-auto press, just press the shirt, let it pop up, and then I'd be brushing in my transfer while I'm doing that to save myself a little bit of time. The glitter vinyl right here, I would probably go and weed that all out separately ahead of time. And then I'd take scissors and I'd cut them all up, and I'd have a stack of UVs, I'd have a stack of Scottsdales, and I'd have a stack of fire departments all sitting next to my press. So sublimate the t-shirt, then I would press the glitter vinyl layer, and then I would put the stones on there and press that. So it's a 3-step process. When I do the final layer, I'm going to put a Teflon cover sheet or a nonstick cover sheet over the whole thing for the last press. And you only have to press it once. Take that back. If you're using Digital Art Solutions Rhinestones, you only have to press that once because our stones have insane adhesive on it. So if you're using some of the, Internet of Stones of the Week Chinese stones, you're going to have to be a little bit more careful on your pressing and maybe do 2 pressing or press it from the inside out. So these stones are not going anywhere. And if you don't believe me, I went on a trip to Germany. I came back. I had a whole bunch of stones I got loose in my suitcase. And I did all my laundry, and my wife's pulling all my laundry out of the dryer. And all of my socks and underwear that had cotton in them are coated in rhinestones, and you couldn't pry them off with the pliers. And that was pretty funny. I wasn't too thrilled about that, but it was kind of funny. So that's the production side. So let's go and talk about the marketing side, which to me is just as important. Okay, so this design right here, if in terms of production costs, let's say you're using like a polyester T-shirt, like a vaporware shirt, which is a $4.50 to $6 shirt. So that's your shirt cost, and then you get your cost of your sublimation ink. Let's say the sublimation ink cost on this is $1. So let's say we're up to say $5.50. Stone-wise, I'm just going to click on info here. Stone-wise, we have 152 rhinestones. That's 30 cents. If we're doing clear stones, that's 30 cents. That's 60 cents if we're doing a colored stone like a black diamond. Okay, so the rhinestone part of this is minuscule. We could have got our costing on the glitter vinyl layer just by checking the running distance of that job, and that would have told us our costing on the glitter vinyl layer, because that would include all the waste. So I wasn't really paying attention there, but you're probably talking glitter vinyl in here, somewhere about $1.50 worth of glitter vinyl. So we're gonna call this design, just to be on the safe side, we'll just say $5.50 plus 6. We'll call this $7 cost. A shirt like this, you're gonna sell a shirt like this, multi-decoration with glitter vinyl and sublimation and rhinestones. This is a $30 shirt. Okay. You could also personalize this, so you could put a level of personalization in it. You could put person's nickname as a secondary print in glitter vinyl. You put a monogram in there. You could do that as well. But wholesale on a design like this is going to be probably 15 to 20. Retail is going to be 25 to 30, and it's got high perceived value, and that's why people will pay for it, because of the high perceived value. So that's a typical economics of this. So how are we going to get this in front of a client? So a couple things. Number one, there's a tab right here. It says proof. This is the proofing tab in Rhinestone Designer. And what it says right here, it says, okay, do you want to put a border around the perimeter of it? Yeah, I do. I want to put a black border around it, see what it looks like. Do you want to put a little sparkle effect in there to make it look like sparkles? Yeah, probably want to do that. And do you want to make a rhinestone simulation so these actually look like rhinestones? So I'm doing that right now. I'm just doing a little simulation. There you go. So that is your proof right there. And there's your rhinestone simulation right there. And so here's the funny thing. You could just print this. So you wouldn't even have to put stones on there. You could just do fake stones and print it. You could always do that and do fake glitter too if you want it. So what we're going to do next with this is I'm going to delete that background, but I'm going to make a virtual sample. And we're going to use the virtual sample feature in Smart Designer. So Smart Designer adds about 140 features into CorelDRAW, and it's all the things that people do every day that are tedious and time consuming. And this is one of the more, in my opinion, more valuable features of Smart Designer is the virtual sampling function. I'm kind of proud of this feature because the concept, the word virtual samples and the concepts of virtual samples didn't exist before Digital Art Solutions. So the first software to have a virtual sample capability was the original Smart Designer, the Smart Designer 1.0, which is 22 years ago. And I remember showing this off at the PPAI show at the time, Dallas. You couldn't have gotten within 10 feet of our booth. It was so busy. People had never seen this before. Now it's become kind of a standard thing that you see in just web-based programs or programs that have copied features from what we do. But we were the original. We were the original people to do virtual samples. And so we've tried to take this particular functionality, the software, and really make it something special. And I think we've been very successful doing that. So let me show you kind of some of the nuances of this. Number one, we can add any product that we want. So if we go to the internet and we can take a screen grab of a product or right-click on it and copy it, and we can add it into the virtual samples feature. And we also have stock virtual samples that are built into the software, so we could use our stock ones, but anything that we can find online, we can put into the system. So what I'm going to do is we're going to just do, let's see if what do I got here? We're going to go over here into my Sanmar folder, and there we go. We've got a little black t-shirt right here. I'm going to have it put it on that black shirt. Could put it on the ladies' shirt or the men's shirt. It's up to me. And I'm just going to double click on that. And it's going to put that on the shirt for me. And there's an imageable area for the shirt. So for that particular shirt, there's a very specific imageable area that we've assigned by drawing a box around the shirt. So when we add the product blank using the Add Product Blanks feature, we just drew a box where we want the design to go. Pretty simple. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Proposal Sheets. And I'm going to add this design to the proposal sheet. That's that. And then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to create our proposal. So I'm going to say Form Data right here. And here's all my company information. We only have to put that in there once. And then here's my link to my logo, so it'll actually stamp my logo in there. That's part of the data sheet. And I'm going to pick the style of my data sheet. So I'm just going to pick style number 2 here. Looks pretty good. And I'm just going to hit Create Proposal. So it's going to create a flyer layout. I can add my own flyer layouts into the system. I can also add not only sales flyers, I can add order forms in there. And we actually have templates of stock order forms, which is a fairly popular thing that we do. So here is my little file right there. You guys like my watermark there? Thou shalt not steal. If you thought that was funny, I think it's funny too. But we're going to delete the watermark because we don't necessarily need it. So we're going to come over here. We're going to delete the watermark here. Here's your information: 152 rhinestones, 152 black diamond SS10s, 3 glitter vinyl objects. Here's the colors that are used in the Pantone colors that are used in the design. All this is editable. You can click in this field and delete that if you don't want it. If you don't want the customer to see it, you can delete all this. Put a background on it, anything you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Export to PDF, and I'm just going to put this on my desktop. I'm going to let you guys download this. So I'm going to hit Scottsdale FD. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to go down here where it says PDF for editing. I'm going to click on Settings, and I'm going to click on Color, and we're going to convert this to RGB colors so it's a little bit brighter. I'm going to put in a copyright 2018. So now I own the copyright to this. And we're going to do some JPEG compression to make this file a little smaller. So at 180. And I'm going to downsample my bitmaps down to about 200 dpi. That's all those rhinestone dots. We're going to shrink those down. And I'm going to render any kind of complex fills as bitmaps. And those rhinestones are complex fills. I'm going to embed fonts in document, and I'm going to go down here to security, and I could put a password security in here so you guys couldn't open it or edit it if I wanted to do that. Could do that, but I'm not. And there's all your settings right there. So JPEG, 200 dpi, render complex fills. I don't need to embed the fonts in there. Color, we're going to do RGB color. Here's my copyright. I'm going to hit OK to save those settings, and then we're going to make the PDF file. We're going to hit save right there. So that's going to make the PDF file. And you can check the progress of that PDF just by going over to your file menu. As long as that's grayed out, it'll tell you. Now here's the scoop. You do not have to go to Save as PDF or Export PDF. In CorelDRAW, the PDF function is actually a specific function for creating PDFs. That's what gives you all that formatting. And right here is your PDF file. It's 3.29 megabytes, so it's a pretty small file. Most of the file size from this is going to be coming from the complex fills and the rhinestones. That's where all your file size is going to come from. So it's going to take a little while to load, because it's having to load the rhinestone preview there. So that's what your customers are looking at. They're looking at a real live, this would look really great on navy blue, but probably a little bit better on navy than it does on black, although it looks good on black. So it would look good on Oxford too. Oxford gray, this would look ridiculous on Oxford gray. So this is what you get in front of your customer. So how do you get that in front of your customer? Well, this is some of the stuff that we teach you guys. So we use a little service called Hightail Spaces. And we have a paid account, but you can get a free account. You have the ability to do this with a free account. I'm going to say New Space. I'm going to say Scottsdale Fire Department. I'm going to hit Create Space. And then I'm going to take my little PDF and drag and drop it in there. This is the modern way of doing it, because I can set up this little Hightail Spaces page for my customers, and they can do proofing with it. If they go and click on this file, it's going to generate a preview of it. I don't have to try to attach it to an email, which could very likely be picked off by their spam filter. So I'm going to hit View. I can password protect this if I want. They can put comments in there. I can do requests for approval. If they do any commenting on it, I'm going to get a little email that says, hey, man, they commented on it. And then I can get a request for approval, and they can click on the approval button, and I get an email that says, hey, man. So this is how we roll. This is the modern way of doing it. This is the kind of stuff that we teach you. And so this is all built into the software. And so how you learn how to do this is by doing the Digital Art Solutions webcasts, which we do 3 times a week. You're welcome to register for those. There's no charge to do that. We leave the archive of recorded webcasts on the website for a month. Then they go to the owner's website. You do have to be an owner of Digital Art Solutions software to get access to the owner's website. The owner's website has right now is 236 individual archived webcasts on just about any topic you could ever imagine. There's movies that are built right into Smart Designer. So you just go to the movie player, you click on tutorials, click on tutorials and PDFs. And these are all the different movies by category. To learn how to use the software, we have written documentation and manuals for all this. Like our multi-decoration system with all the Rhinestone stuff, it has its own little 90-page manual. It talks about all the heat press instructions and all the time and temperatures, how to dial your cutter in. Here's catalogs of all of our different art volumes. We have 83 different collections that are available, and they're all kind of set up by specific subject matter. One of the things that we're really super well known for is monograms. And we have, if you were on the previous webcast, you would have saw the webcast on monograms. We have 3,200 monogram templates in our Smart Monograms 1 and 2. These are templates that are built into Smart Designer, and we edit these interactively using the template editing feature. There's no keyboard shortcuts. We just click on the template, and it opens up, and we go in and highlight the letters, and it just swaps it out for us. We made it as painless as possible. This particular volume is, I think the ebook on this is 128 pages. There's 2 of these. So there's 3,200 monogram templates. And yes, we do have Vine. That's one of our fonts. So you've got all the different variations of every combination of Vine and ad infinitum. So that's another thing that we're uniquely famous for. So I told you before we started the webcast, I was going to show you something kind of neat. If we take a file here, and we'll do a monogram real quick. So I'm just going to go and create a monogram. And we're just going to say select template. And I'm going to say, go down here to Smart Monograms. We'll go to Monograms 2. I'll click on a 2-color version. We'll go down here to Keepsake. Have a nice little font right here. I'm just going to double click on this one right here. And then we're just going to name drop it really quick. I'll do my daughter's initials. Yeah, we're horrible parents. M. Madeline Marie Mertens. Isn't that terrible? We call her M cubed or M&M. So there's that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to open up our embroidery module, which is called Drawings. I'm going to create a new working document. I'm going to take this and drag and drop it into Drawings. There you go. Convert it to embroidery. I'm going to resize that. This is a perfect sew file, by the way. I'm going to ungroup it. We're going to make these some different colors here. So we'll make that blue. We'll make this hot pink or burgundy. That'll look good. And make that blue. And then what we're going to do is we're going to export this as an image file. And then what we're going to do is we're going to import it back into CorelDRAW and print it as a sublimation transfer. If you have an Oki data printer, these even look cooler. And the quality of this is so good that you can't really tell it isn't embroidered. And that's a sew file. That's a real life sew file as well, just so you're aware. Bam, that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the webcast, and then I'm going to open it up for questions.